wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'm wired here, so I don't want to strangle myself before the evening begins. But good evening, and thank you for coming out to La Bella Sera this evening. I would like to give first a shout out to our hosts, Tyler Anderson and Shannon Wishon. They are our hosts this evening and graciously put together the evening's setup and food and beverage that they're providing for you tonight. So a big shout out to La Bella Sera. A quick question, how many of you have been in La Bella Sera before tonight? Thank you, that's good to hear. I appreciate that. I think tourism is an important topic here in Paso Robles, and I think tonight's turnout is reflective of that. So thank you for spending your time this evening. The Dodgers are playing the Colorado Rockies Game 3 tonight. I know you could be elsewhere, but thank you for being here tonight. Yes, I'm a Dodger fan. Yes, thank you, right? I would also, I'd like to introduce a few of our folks that are very significant partners of Paso Robles and our tourism industry here in the community. I've got a couple of my Travel Paso board members that I'll introduce in just a moment as part of the panel, but in our audience tonight, Michael Bradley, who's the CEO of the California Mid-State Fair and the Paso Robles Event Center, is on our board. And then I'd also like to introduce Kathy Bonelli with Paso Robles Vacation Rentals, is also on the Travel Paso board, as well as the Visit SlowCal board. There's a lot of acronyms, and we'll get to those in just a minute, but I wanted to make those introductions. We also have some terrific partners in the room this evening as well. Jennifer Porter and Chris Toronto are here from the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance, and so raise your hands and say hello. Thank you. Gina Fitzpatrick and Josh Cross are here from the Paso Robles Chamber of Commerce. And just as an aside, Gina's team is who handles our visitor center in downtown Paso Robles on Park Street. And a little bit later, we'll be able to ask her a couple of questions about the services that they provide. And then I would also like to introduce our significant regional partner in our tourism marketing effort. Chuck Davison is the CEO and president of what's called Visit SlowCal. That's the name of the San Luis Obispo County Destination Marketing and Management Organization. And Chuck came up to Paso Robles to be a part of this evening. So Chuck, please say hello. Thank you. I started in the tourism industry. Although I didn't know it at the time, I just thought I was in high school making a little bit of cash on the side because I was a car hop at A&W. Linda, thank you. And Kathy, my coworker there, Kathy David. But in high school, it was money for me. It was fun. But the reason I was in the tourism industry, but I didn't know it at the time, is because on a Sunday night, we used to arm wrestle over who got to be that car hop for all the traffic that was coming in from Lake Nacimiento. Hello, these were folks that were coming up from Southern California, the Central Valley, to come hang out at this amazing asset that we had in Paso Robles that drove a lot of visitation and a lot of interest. I started out at A&W. It was a blast. I learned a tremendous amount that took me through the rest of my career. I got into the hotel industry, also in Paso Robles. My first hotel job was at the Best Western Black Oak Motor Lodge. Thank you, Shirley and Matt Messia. Those nights were spent checking people in, giving them directions to Wilson's, telling them how to get to downtown Paso Robles, telling them how to get tickets for the fair that evening. I was a tour guide, an information source, a hospitality person, and someone that was introducing that visitor to Paso Robles. I got to turn them on to the place that I got to call home. Years later, I get to go into the big hotel industry. I end up in Southern California. I get to work for a couple of the largest hotels down there. Imagine trying to sell Los Angeles as a destination to people sitting in Chicago and sitting in Iowa and Kansas City. Los Angeles was kind of a four-letter word back then, but we did it because we were able to talk about the assets that we had in Los Angeles and the activities and the fun that we had down there. So tourism on a broad scale also related to the tourism that I had at a small scale. I'm lucky to get to come back to Paso Robles in this capacity to help grow our tourism industry in Paso Robles. It's a very exciting time in our community. It's a very exciting time for the industry, and we as residents get to reap the benefits of that as well as address the challenges and opportunities that tourism brings with it. So tonight we'd like to share with you a little bit of information about the industry. We'd like to share with you some data. We'd like to share with you some personal stories and certainly try to answer any questions that you might have about this very valuable industry that has become Paso Robles tourism. And I will start off too that we're lucky that we were able to grow an industry through the foresight and the pioneering of many of our winemakers that have taken on this opportunity to grow in Paso Robles. Our tourism industry is flourishing as a result of the terrific wine and the terrific winery experiences that our visitors get to have here in Paso Robles. And so I don't want us to leave this room without really understanding and paying attention to the fact that our wine industry and our partners in the wine industry are key to our success here in the community, and it's something that we should all celebrate and be certainly aware of. In fact, we'll ask Tyler a little bit later. He came in directly from the winery today. Harvest is ongoing. We should all be aware of that, and we should all be celebrating it because indications are it's kind of looking like a good year. So after a couple of tough years, 2018 may look pretty good for us. So I want us to be certain that we're aware of that and make sure that we always understand what that industry means to our community. So with that, I'd like to make some introductions of our panel this evening. Joining us is Victor Pop. He is the general manager of the La Quinta Inn and Suites out on Buena Vista Drive. Victor also happens to be the chairman of the Travel Paso Board of Directors and was instrumental in getting Travel Paso formed. Also joining us this evening is Tyler Russell. He's the owner and winemaker of Cordant and Nell Wineries. Clever tasting room right out here, right at the entrance to Tin City. He's also on the board for Studios on the Park, and he serves on the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance Board of Directors and very active in the arts and community here in Paso Robles. And then John Arnold, a familiar face to many of you because John is extremely involved in many organizations here in town. John is the general manager of the Holiday Inn Express down on Riverside next to the fairgrounds. He's also on the Visits Locale Board of Directors. He's on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and he's on the Travel Paso Board of Directors. So very instrumental in leadership in our industry here in the community. So let's talk tourism. Let's get into a little bit of data and get into a little bit of information sharing that we just discovered this year. We're going to talk about the definition of tourism because I think there's a misnomer out there about what tourism is. We're going to talk a little bit about the economic impact of tourism in Paso Robles. We're going to talk about the destination marketing. We throw that term around a lot. What does it mean? You should know it and become familiar with it. And then we'll talk about the benefits from tourism here in Paso Robles. Here's the definition of tourism. We use this from the United Nations World Tourism Organization. They're pretty much the authority when it comes to tourism at that level. And let's just acknowledge what it is. It comprises the activities of persons traveling to and staying in places outside their usual environment for not more than one consecutive year for leisure, business, and other purposes. So I share this because we talk about tourism industry, we talk about tourism sector, we talk about tourism, but tourism isn't a category that you're going to find with the Bureau of Economic Analysis. You're not going to find it separate as tourism. What makes up tourism are all the sectors within it. Think about lodging, think about retail, think about restaurant, think about transportation, think about the services that are provided, think about caterers. All of those sectors make up the tourism industry. So when we talk tourism, let's understand what we're talking about. It's an industry that is fed by and supported by several different sectors that we all are familiar with and acknowledge. This number just came out at the beginning of this year, or excuse me, the beginning of this week, sorry, in partnership and through a co-op opportunity that we had with Visits Locale, we were able to tap into tourism economics and do an economic impact study for our tourism industry here in Paso. $354 million is the amount of visitor spending that was generated in 2017 through our tourism industry. A couple of disclaimers that I need to share right now. This data is specific to those visitor spending numbers within the city of Paso Robles, within the boundaries, city limits of Paso Robles. It doesn't include what might be right outside the city limits but connect themselves to Paso Robles. So for instance, somebody staying at Summerwood Inn, their number wasn't tracked on this because they're just outside the city limits. It also doesn't include all the wineries that are outside of the city limits. When we look at the number later on, we'll see that winery is included as the manufacturing sector in this study. But it's $354 million is a pretty significant price tag that the visitors are spending here in Paso Robles. When we look at the overall impact, we're talking about a $445 million number. And we talk about three different terms here: direct, indirect, and induced. Everybody know what that is? No. So direct, certainly it's the visitor that's spending it. It's the visitor spending their actual dollar. The indirect speaks to those supplies that are purchased by those sectors in the industry. So somebody buying the tomatoes from the local farmer in town to serve in their restaurant, that's an indirect. Then when we talk to induced, these are the employees that are within those various sectors that are spending their dollar back in Paso Robles. They're spending it here. So when we combine all three of those categories, we get a $445 million direct spending in Paso Robles. Here's the breakdown. Pretty significant. Lodging is at the top at $89 million. And then the others are broken down pretty equally. As I mentioned, the manufacturing is where the wineries that are selling in Paso Robles are counted and tracked. You're going to ask yourself, well, what about recreation? Where is that? What's in that? Recreation includes our friends at the fair. It includes our friends at Vina Robles. It includes some of those extra activities that we have here in town. And then obviously our food and beverage is our restaurants and bars and services. And then retail speaks for itself, as is local transportation. And let's remember that local transportation is buses that are moving people around, the vans that are moving people around, the Uber and Lyft drivers that are moving people around. So it's a significant part of our sector here in Paso. Let's talk about jobs in Paso Robles. Specific to the tourism industry, 3,356 direct jobs in Paso Robles. And when we add up those other categories of direct, induced, and indirect, we talk about a 4,422 number. Remember, this is jobs within the city of Paso Robles. It doesn't include all those that are right outside the city limits, including our friends at the wineries and the vineyards. But when we look at the number that Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance generated back in 2016, the employment number for the wine industry up here in the North County was about 11,000 jobs. When we look to combine this, we start to talk about a significant amount of employment that is generated by the tourism industry up here in the North County. And in fact, a number that was shared today by Josh from the Chamber of Commerce, we find that the accommodations and restaurant, a big section of the tourism sector, is the third highest employment base in the North County, behind what's called health services and retail. We can count retail has a little bit of jobs with the tourism as well. But that's a significant portion of employment that is serviced by the tourism industry up here in the North County. Here's our visitation number from the 2017 report, 1.3 million visitors. They break it down into day and to overnight. It's basically double the overnight visits, so these are people who are staying in the community. And then we have day visits, and you're going to say, well, who's a day visitor? Well, somebody who's staying in San Luis Obispo who chose to come up here and hang out in Paso Robles, or somebody who was staying in Morro Bay that came to Paso Robles, those count as our day visitors. So we see a significant amount that gets fed to us from other parts of the county. How do people get here? So we just talked about 1.3 million visitors. Well, how do they get here? Who's out there telling them to come here? We talk about destination marketing, and we throw that term around quite a bit. What is destination marketing? So it really is as basic as it sounds. It's marketing and promoting the destination to increase visitation. There is the purpose behind it. However, there's a couple of additional parts to destination marketing, a couple of different additional benefits into destination marketing. We talk about the visitor demand, but then we also talk about the brand. And we talk about owning and establishing and stewarding the brand that's done through our destination marketing. So when somebody's out there talking about Paso Robles, it's through some destination marketing efforts that we're trying to instill what our story is. What is our brand? What's our experience like? We do that through the destination marketing efforts that we put in place. And then the third part of destination marketing really starts to speak to what's it like to live in Paso Robles? What's it like to have a business in Paso Robles? what would it be like for me to think about moving from my town that I currently live in to come open a business in Paso Robles? Better yet, if I'm living in Paso Robles, what's it like for me to be able to grow my business through destination marketing? That's a third part of this destination marketing. It's really important to the business development side of economic development. Destination marketing has a pretty large ecosystem, and I want to share this with you. We started off with Brand USA. Imagine that somebody does have the responsibility to market the United States to the rest of the world to come visit. And let me just share this. It wasn't that long ago that the United States did not have a Brand USA in place. It came about as a result of the Travel Promotion Act that was passed under the Obama administration. And it established Brand USA to help tell the story of the United States as a destination to the rest of the world. It's also the one that's working to help get improved airport accessibility and to help improve the visa process that our visitors have to go through, and to help make sure that those processes are in place and that they're being implemented in a safe and frequent way. Our friends at Visit California, they're our state tourism office, and it wasn't that long ago that California did away with the California Office of Tourism. They had $0. The legislature in Sacramento said, we don't need it. We don't need to market California. People come anyway. Guess what? The industry stood up and said, no, we're losing market share to places like Las Vegas, to places like Florida, to places like Nevada. We're losing market share. We as the industry, we want to do something about it. We're going to assess ourselves and generate a revenue stream that allows California to market themselves. They went from zero to now a budget of over $100 million a year that they use to market California to not just the domestic market, but also our friends internationally. It's a significant partner for us. Some of you may realize that we had a big Dream Drive media fam that came through earlier this year to celebrate the opening of Highway 1. That was generated through Visit California. They lined up 84 vintage vehicles, one from each year of the Highway 1 opening, and brought in international visitors from around the world to come experience San Luis Obispo County. That's what Visit California does for us. They are very significant to the work driving international visitation to Paso Robles. We also have another layer in there, our Central Coast Tourism Council. They work on a regional basis. They cover everything from Oxnard north to Santa Cruz and everything in between. It's a lot of leveraging, it's a lot of partnerships, and it's funded, a portion of it is funded through Visit California as part of their rural development program. Visit SlowCal is our significant county-wide effort. They have a direct link to Visit California. They work very closely with all of the destinations here in the county. They help bring in our media who are interested in learning more about the area. They also have a significant marketing budget, and all of the communities in the county feed into and help fund the county-wide effort as well. They're a major partner in our destination marketing. And we talk about Travel Paso in just a second, and then we have all of our Paso Robles assets. Everybody who's in town, hotels, restaurants, retail, the fair, Vina Robles, Cava Robles, everybody promotes themselves and markets themselves. So the ecosystem is quite large, but it is connected, and we don't get to do it by ourselves. We do it through a lot of leverage and partnerships that we develop over time. Here's Travel Paso. What is it? We're the official destination marketing organization for Paso Robles. It was officially formed in July of 2017. Prior to that, there was some destination marketing efforts that were going on through the support of the city, through an advisory body that they had set up. And so they were still putting marketing into the marketplace, but Travel Paso was officially formed last year. It is funded through a tourism improvement district that is an assessment that the hotels put on themselves to help cover the cost of operating Travel Paso, and it is governed by an elected board of directors. The green that you see up there, the really bright chartreuse, that is the boundary of the Travel Paso Assessment District. The hotels that are hotels, lodging accommodations, RV parks, vacation rentals, room share programs that fall within that boundary all pay into the assessment. And make a note on that, the assessment is collected by the operator, the hotelier. They remit that to the city, and then the city turns around and writes the check to Travel Paso. It is not a tax that is imposed by the city of Paso Robles. It's an assessment that the hotels voted unanimously themselves to impose on the guest in order to help fund the destination marketing organization. Earlier this year, Travel Paso, because it was just getting started, we went through a strategic planning process. I want to share with you a couple of the 4 imperatives that we have. Very specifically, we want to lead the tourism community in Paso Robles. We're looking to build and nurture and sustain the destination marketing organization in order to keep generating positive results for the tourism industry here in town. We obviously want to define, develop, and steward the Paso Robles brand. And then most importantly and very significantly, we want to build and leverage partnerships. Our board of directors is very keen on collaboration, and you'll see that word used significantly. We collaborate where we have every opportunity to do so, and it's important to our board and to our staff that we do approach our work with a collaborative spirit. How do we market Paso Robles? These are just a couple of the key categories that you'll see us in. We certainly have our digital and traditional print advertising. We certainly work on our search engine marketing. You guys are familiar with that. When you click on and you go do a search and it finds out, it knows what you searched for, it's going to come back and talk to you a little bit later and say, hey, you were searching for this. Don't you want to search for it some more, or don't you want to learn some more about it? We use that to help market Paso Robles. To use Victor's term, we bug people, if you will. We reach out to them and touch them a few different times, because if they expressed an interest in us, we want to go back out and make sure that they got the information they were looking for, or perhaps be a little bit more inspired to make the decision to come to Paso Robles. We also have a very robust media and communications plan. Many of you in this room get the call from us. We've got a journalist that's coming into town from New York City. We've got somebody that's coming in from Los Angeles. We've got somebody that's coming in from San Francisco. They're writing for Marie Claire. They're writing for Sunset. They're writing for the San Francisco Chronicle. They want to come and do a story. We're able to facilitate them through our partnerships and leverage their stories with additional advertising and marketing out there. We're very active on our social media channels. If you're not following us, I would encourage you to do so. We're on Facebook. We have a great Instagram account. We also have Twitter. And we're using Twitter to make sure that people know when tickets go on sale for all those great special events that we're interested in. So make sure that you're following us where you can. And then we are very active with sponsorships and community partnerships with many of our event organizers and producers in Paso Robles. So we talk about visitation and we talk about destination marketing, but the additional benefit to destination marketing really speaks to a halo effect that we have out there. There is a psychologist, Mr. Thorndike, who talked many years ago about this halo effect in general. And it talks about how we look at a person's character. Our judgment of something can be influenced by that impression that they have of them. I may not know anything specific about you, but if I have an overall good impression of you, I might think better of you. That's the halo effect. When we take that and apply that to the tourism industry, and in particular destination marketing, here's what happens. If we have a visitor who sees something positive about Paso Robles, whether it's in a story that they're reading or a post on somebody's social media, or perhaps it's an advertisement that they saw of Paso Robles, they have an impression, they have a thought. And if that thought turns into a visit, now all of a sudden they have an impression, a great impression of Paso Robles. They have an impression of what it's like to be in Paso Robles. They get to interact with so many of the great residents that we have here in town. They get to interact with the great winemakers, the restaurateurs, the hoteliers. They get to interact with that. And they walk away going, wow, I understand what Paso Robles is. I got a taste of that. And as a result of that impression, they start to think now twice about, how do I think about opening a business in Paso Robles? How do I think about growing the business that I have somewhere else and perhaps opening another one in Paso Robles? It's the halo effect. It's not just about destination marketing and visitation, but it's about creating a positive impression of Paso Robles that people around will start to follow and want to interface and want to be a part of and want to support and show up and share. When we have that impression, we have that positive impression, we start talking about those key economic development drivers that we're looking at. We start talking about how we're growing business, how we're bringing in new business. A good impression is extremely important to help with those economic indicators. So if we've got destination marketing and we've got a good impression out there and we've got people coming to Paso Robles, well, who benefits from it? Who receives the benefit from it? Let's talk about this. In Paso Robles, our transient occupancy tax, or what we call TOT, we throw that acronym around a lot, it's imposed by the city of Paso Robles onto our guests who stay in our hotels, our vacation rentals, our RV parks, our B&Bs. It's a tax that is imposed by the city. The city collects the tax that is imposed on that guest. 100% of that TOT that is collected by the city goes into the city's general fund. Next week, I think you're going to hear a little bit more about the finances, but if you've been coming to these regularly, the question is asked, well, what do they do with the general fund? Who uses the general fund? What comes out of the general fund, and what do we pay for out of the general fund? Things like new fire trucks, things like city services, things like new parks and playgrounds and facilities. That's all part of the general fund. Last year in 2017, 2018, we generated 536, almost $5.8 million in TOT that went straight to the town's general fund. You take that away, that means that perhaps that extra fire truck that we were looking at, or perhaps that extra new bathroom at the city park that we were looking at, may take a little bit longer to try and find the funding for that. This is a revenue stream that the city has 100% control of and goes straight into the general fund. And it's one that is paid entirely by the visitor that comes into Paso Robles. Real quick, here's our lodging inventory. As of 9/7/18, that was a couple of weeks ago, this is a fluid chart because we have things kind of coming and going, but it is fluid. We currently have 2,217 rooms in Paso Robles that are a part of paying into the TOT general fund. We have 2 big RV parks that are here. We have vacation rentals and room shares, and then we have our hotels and motels. Here's an additional city benefit. Let's talk about sales tax. So overall, last year, fiscal year 17-18, the city generated $53.7 million in sales tax. That sounds like a lot. And at the bottom of that slide gives you the formula of who breaks it down. Paso's share of that $53 million that got to stay here was about $10.4 million in sales tax. That 4.1 of that was generated by visitors. About $1 million of that is a supplemental sales tax that is paid for by the visitors. Ryan, our finance director, next week will give you a better definition of supplemental sales tax. Trust me, he said, I don't want to know. It's complicated, but it's a nice big number, $1 million of it. We can attribute about 5.1 of that 10.4 million to visitors who come into this area. It's another large number that sales tax is generated by visitors that come through here. It's also a number that, if it's not coming in from the visitor, it's something that our residents have to think about shouldering the financial responsibility of. So let's think about this as an enhancement to the city's finances to allow them to provide the services that we depend upon. We have destination marketing. We know what that is, we know what the benefits are, but who are the tourism stakeholders in Paso Robles? Who are they? Who are these people? What do they do? What kind of businesses are they operating? We want to provide you a few snapshots of who's employed by the tourism industry in Paso Robles. These, Carol and Santo, La Cosecha, Il Cotile. I'm hoping you've had a chance to eat there. If you haven't, please do, or at least get to the truck. The third business that they've opened in Paso Robles as a result of a thriving tourism economy. Our front desk clerks in our hotels, our room attendants in our hotels, our banquet managers in our hotels, our landscapers in our hotels. They're all working within our hotel industry, a significant portion of our employment base here. Our wineries, our tasting rooms, our hospitality managers, our wine club managers make up a significant part of the employment here in Paso Robles. They're tourism stakeholders. Transportation companies, independent business owners, they're a part of our tourism economy. The vineyards are a significant part of our tourism economy. Bars, restaurants, tourism economy, they're employed. There they have it. The city benefits. The city's a stakeholder in this. The city's a stakeholder because of the benefits that they receive. Here's playground equipment that's been built. We also have trails and activities that are part of the community. So the city is a stakeholder in this industry as well. And then finally, you're a tourism stakeholder in this industry. You're the ones who help tell the Paso Robles story. You're the ones who help live and share the Paso story that our visitors want to experience. And you're also the ones who are benefiting from the visitors that are spending when they come to Paso Robles. You're a tourism stakeholder. You're a part of our story. You help make up the story that our visitors want to hear about. They want to have the experience that you get to have on a regular basis, and you're the ones who help contribute to their overall great experience in Paso Robles. It's what's starting to separate us from several destinations around the state of California, is the hospitality that we get to provide in Paso Robles. The people is the story that we hear over and over again. It's the people that make a difference in Paso Robles. You're a tourism stakeholder. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time on that, but then I also want to share with you from our partners over here, my panelists, their stories a little bit about how they got into the tourism industry, what the tourism industry means to them, and the future that they see for our industry here in Paso Robles. I'm going to start with Victor Pop. As I mentioned, he's the chairman of the board for Travel Paso and the general manager for the La Quinta Inn.
Thank you, Dana. I would be remiss in talking about myself first before I thanked Dana. As she indicated earlier, we formed as an organization in July of 2017. One of the first things that we did was form a board, and the second thing that we did was we hired Dana Stroud. And as you can see from the complexity of the slides and her presentation, we are very happy that she's on board and helping to lead our organization. Thank you very much. Yeah. My story kind of starts back when I was going to a junior college, and I had to, my instructors told me I had to declare a major. And I was looking to transfer to a four-year college, and I didn't quite know what I wanted to do yet. And I remember my dad saying, do something that you might enjoy doing. And so I thought, and what do I enjoy doing? And I loved skiing at Mammoth. Any spare time I had, I was up at Mammoth skiing. You know, wasn't real good. I considered myself a aggressive intermediate, but as I looked at that, I was not going to be a candidate for the U.S. ski team or anything along that line. So how could I parlay that adventure, the up in the mountains, the exploring with something that I would really enjoy? And we got the opportunity to stay at the same hotel multiple times, and got a chance to meet the motel manager. And I thought, hey, I think that's for me. I think I can do that. So back when I was at this point, we didn't have the internet. Researching schools to go to and who might have some sort of a hotel program was a little bit more challenging back then as it is now. And we had to go to a library. We had to open up catalogs from universities and see what programs they offered. And so in my quick research, I saw that Cal Poly offered a program in hotel and restaurant management, a 4-year degree. So I was great. I know where Cal Poly is. I was in Camarillo. It's a couple 3 hours up the road, and great. I'm going to go check it out. So I come up here and I'm just absolutely captivated. Captivated by, I remember seeing Morro Bay, I remember the beaches, I remember a quaint San Luis Obispo downtown, and I thought, this is for me. This is where I not only want to go to school, I can see myself living here. And so I rush back to school and I say, okay, I've selected what I want to do. I want to get into hotel management, and I want to go to Cal Poly's program for hotel management. He says, great. Have you toured the school in Pomona yet? And I go, Pomona? And I thought I was going to the Cal Poly program in San Luis Obispo. It was actually in a sister university in Pomona. Love my alma mater. Go Broncos. I like to joke around with friends in this area that I went to the real Cal Poly when there's we did the parades together along with San Luis Obispo, and Pomona always had the head of the float that we did, and San Luis Obispo had the tail. Just tossing that out there, but it was all it was all a lot of fun. But that kind of got me introduced to this area, and at that time, having a degree, a 4-year degree in hotel and restaurant management was something unique, and I was able to kind of parlay that and working for a lot of the major chains throughout Los Angeles and Orange County, and ended up in the Seattle area, and I got a call. Fast forward 25 years, I got a call that said, how would you like to open up a boutique hotel in the Paso Robles region? And the owner had a winery, and he wanted to add to his holdings a hotel option. And I came down and didn't really associate like probably a lot of people didn't do at the time. Paso Robles, where is it? And as soon as I came down here, associated it with San Luis Obispo, with this beautiful county, and I've been here for the last 13 years. And a lot of hotel managers move around, and that's kind of a way they develop themselves. And I've really found my home here. And I like to say that not only am I now part of the story, now that I'm now able to help tell the story, but what I'm most proud of is I'm now able to live the story by being here. And so I've just come full circle, and very happy to be here.
Cool.
There you go, sir.
Hello. Yeah, that was really good, wasn't it? I don't know how to top that. It's not a competition. No. Yeah, my name is Tyler Russell. I own and make the wine at Nell and Cordant Winery here in Paso Robles. I got to Paso Robles in 2006. I was 22 years old. Started in the wine industry actually in upstate New York. I'm originally from California, born and raised in Sanger, California, but ended up upstate New York, got a job at a wine shop because I loved wine and didn't care about making money because I was 22, or actually 19 at the time, and just was madly in love with it and just talked about wine every day. Became the buyer of this store. I drank wine, tasted wine every day, drank wine every day, whatever you want to call it. And decided one day that I wanted to pursue winemaking. I wanted to be a winemaker. And I researched different places to go. I even looked internationally because I was early 20s and had nothing keeping me anywhere. And I always had a thing for the wines from this area as I learned more about wine. And again, I was the buyer of the store, and I actually brought in a decent amount of wines from Paso Robles into the store because I had a certain little familiarity with it. And so I chose, of everywhere in the world to go, this area. I thought at the time I was going to need a degree to make wine, and the idea of being where Cal Poly is and also so close to Paso Robles at the same time, to be able to work and get my education at the same time was really appealing. So my then girlfriend, now wife, and I packed up and we moved to the area. We actually didn't even have a place to live. We hopped around in motels and along the beach and in San Luis. And on one of our first days here, we were out wine tasting on Vineyard Drive, and I was given a job on the spot just because I had displayed the right amount of passion that they were looking for someone to kind of help them out in the tasting room and whatever else they needed help with. And so we didn't have a place to live, and I already had a job here, because that's the feeling that you get in the industry in this particular part of the world. Paso Robles, unlike some other areas where wine is made, is really approachable and really warm, and really the sense of community within the industry is so strong. It sets us apart from other regions. And the testament to that is me having a job without any experience in production or in a tasting room, and not even a place where I can live at the time, because we all know how hard it is to find a place to live in this area. They were amazing to me. They just let me kind of do my thing and kind of blossom there. I ended up working the harvest with them, and I was offered a bonus at the end of harvest, and it was either a cash bonus, which would have been cool, or it was a ton of grapes, which would equal about 2 barrels of wine that I can do whatever I wanted with. And with those 2 barrels of wine, I chose the wine over the cash, because again, top ramen was delicious at the time, so I didn't care about that. Still delicious, let's be real. The idea of having my own 2 barrels of wine was really appealing, and that's why I came here. And the fact that I was able to do it within 1 year of living here seemed pretty monumental, really, for me, especially at that age. So I was given this ton of grapes. I turned it into 2 barrels of wine, and then I bottled those 2 barrels of wine and sold it to every restaurant or every wine shop or every person that would let me pour it out of my house or out of the back of my truck for them, because I didn't have a tasting room. And I hope no one from the ABC is here right now, but not necessarily legal. But there's law enforcement. How you doing? Yeah. But, I did. It was a bootstrap kind of thing, and I turned those 2 barrels into 6, and I turned the next 6 barrels into 9, and the next 9 barrels into 12, and now I make about 100 barrels a year of wine from grapes from various sites throughout the Central Coast, and have a tasting room and have employees, and involved in a community that is very dear to my heart outside of wine. Involved with studios on the park. Art is very important to me. We're involved in getting a new ordinance for mural art downtown Paso Robles, so there's more public art, there's more things, there's more culture. Not only am I a business owner involved in the community, but I'm also a father in this town. I have 2 children, a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl, and I love taking them down to our city parks and different things that we can do around this town. And this is a very, 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 very special place, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, because not only do we know that, but now other people are starting to figure it out. And we kind of need to own it and be proud of that, and also be willing to share it a little bit, because it's unavoidable. And the more we can just enjoy it and enjoy the assets that come along with it, I think the happier we'll all be, because this is a very, very, very special place. The fact that we're even here having this conversation and so many people are here is testament to that, because we all care, and that's really awesome. So that's that. Here's John.
Thank you, Tyler. My name is John Arnold. I'm the GM of the Holiday Inn Express here in town. My story, it's been a fun one. When I was a young kid, I had the chance to come down to transfer to Cal Poly to play baseball. I came down here for the first time on a recruiting trip, and I said, holy cow, this place is just gorgeous. I mean, it's the first time I'd ever been down in this part of California, and I grew up in a pretty nice place like Tahoe, which is pretty awesome. But when I came down here on the recruiting trip, I was 100% sold. And I had the opportunity to have a full ride scholarship to Cal Poly to play baseball. All I wanted to do was major in baseball. That's all I ever wanted to do. Didn't really pan out, but I ended up calling my dad, and I said, hey, Dad, like this place, Cal Poly, it's awesome. Why don't you go on down and watch some games? They came down here, and he said, John, I was born and raised in Paso Robles. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like you kept talking about it. He was a graduate in 1951, but back then it wasn't quite what it is today, as I'm sure we can all recognize. But he came down and he started realizing a lot of his old classmates never left. I'm sure some of you have heard of Norma Moy, same exact grade, K through 12. So I had an opportunity after my baseball career didn't pan out to come here. My dad bought a building in town. I was on 13th and Vine, the old Joshua's building, and it used to be an old church, and he said, do something with it. Just go ahead. So we looked around. Antique stores were really huge at that time. This was 1999. So I opened up what was the Pearly Gates Antique Mall at that time. And I was just a 24-year-old punk kid, single guy, running an antique store. And it's the first time I've ever lived in a community where I never knew anybody. And so my dad, we were talking one day, and he said, "John, why don't you go down and visit an old friend of mine, Norma Moy, down at the Main Street office?" And it was one of the greatest blessings and the biggest curses to go down and meet Norma and let her know that you have a lot of time on your hands afterwards. I ended up volunteering, getting on the Main Street board, and just started meeting so many people who just treated me as if I was one of them, like I was a local. I wasn't just a kid who just moved here. And I'll never forget how that made me feel, actually. So as time moved on, I guess getting into the hotel industry was more out of need. I needed a paycheck. I was a real estate agent for 7 years leading up into that, and they had a position for a sales position. I was going through a separation. It was kind of a tough time, and I went and met the owner of this hotel and said, "I'm your guy. I guarantee whatever you pay me, I'll triple it. So just pay me. Just give me the job." And he said, "Okay, you can have it." All right, so we went in, did that, and just a little over a year later, he offered me the GM job, and it's been 9 years. And 2014, got really involved in the community with the Chamber of Commerce. At the time, it was more the advisory body of Travel Paso, and it's just my job and goal to infiltrate every possible board I can get my hands on, because I love this town. I mean, I want us to succeed, I want us to win. But I really care about the values because my dad was born here. My grandfather was a local barber in town from the 30s until he passed away in '74. So it means a lot to me. And anything I can do to get in the ear of Mr. Frucci over there, I'm all about it. So that's me in a nutshell.